Hi photographers, in this tutorial I'm going to teach you how to adjust your contrast using 3 different types of adjustment layers. The first thing you're going to do is open up photopea.com, Photopea.com. Then you're going to go File, Open, and choose your image from your computer. Once you have that done, you're going to want to duplicate your background layer so that you can see the different adjustments you're making. So I'm going to right click where it says background, choose duplicate layer, and I'm going to rename the first one by double clicking. I'm going to rename it contrast. Okay. If I go down to the bottom of my layers panel, there's a kind of half circle icon that says new adjustment layer. If I click that and scroll up, the first option I have for adjusting my contrast is the brightness/contrast adjustment layer. So if my exposure was a little bit too dark or too bright, if I'm under or overexposed, I can start with that. I have my light source to the side in this shot, so one side of my dog's face is a little bit brighter than the other. I might want to dull that down just a little bit because it's a bit blown out on this side. Then I have my contrast slider. My contrast slider, if I toggle it to the right, I'm going to boost the shadows and the highlights as I go further to the right. And then if I go further to the left, I'm going to flatten the contrast. So it's using the gray tones, mid-tones a little bit more in the image. If I choose to go either way, I always recommend staying in like a medium range, not going too extreme on either end, because then it just looks like an obvious edit. So in my case, I actually think that my exposure was a little off and I would rather flatten the curve for this attempt. So I'm going to go -11. Okay. And then if I want to see what that effect looks like on and off, I can just toggle the adjustment on and off. Okay. I'm going to turn that adjustment layer off, and I'm going to add another one so you guys can see another option. So I'm going to go to, again, the bottom of my layers panel, that half circle option, new adjustment layer. This time I'm going to try the levels. So levels is similar to brightness and contrast, except that you get to play with specifics with the midtones, shadows, and highlights. So I want to make sure first and foremost that my channel is on RGB. Otherwise, I'm going to be isolating specific colors within my image. So if I stay on RGB, I'm going to be manipulating the tonal values all over as opposed to just one color. So if I take the black square slider, I can ramp up my shadows as I bring it closer to the center, or I can take them down a notch by bringing my gray slider, my midtones, closer towards that dark shadow there. So since I think I overexposed this side of my photograph, I might decide to do something like this with my white slider, not increasing it. I would take my gray slider closer towards it. Now, sometimes you're going to pay attention to certain parts of an image and not others. So if I'm looking at this photo and I'm just focusing on this side here with my levels, maybe I want to make this adjustment and then I want to use a mask. So masking can be done in each of the adjustment layers in Photopea or Photoshop with the little white icon that's to the right of the chain link in the adjustment layer on your layers panel. So this white little thumbnail is your mask. When it's completely white, that means nothing is being masked. So I always repeat the rhyme, black to conceal, white to reveal. So white is revealing everything that's in that adjustment. And if I paint with black, it's going to conceal that adjustment. So you can see that the adjustment in levels, although it brought some information back into this side of the image, I've darkened the dog's face enough that I can't really see their features. So I'm going to go to the paintbrush and I'm going to make sure I have black selected in my color picker. And over on this side of the layers panel, I'm going to make sure that the dotted lines are surrounding the white thumbnail. Okay. And I can change my brush to a larger head so you guys can see this adjustment quicker. And I'm going to take my softness all the way down. Okay, and so if I start painting in the layer mask, I'm concealing the adjustment that I just made in that base adjustment layer. So I ramped up the grays or midtones towards the whites of the image just to bring back in some detail there. Okay, and you can see what it looks like in the slider or in the thumbnail on the side right here, just how much you have masked out. Okay, so if I turn that layer off and on again, you can see that subtle adjustment happening in the blanket. Okay, and I'm going to turn that layer off to show you the final option for adjusting your contrast in your image. So I'm going to go again down to the bottom of my layers panel, make sure I'm on the contrast based layer first. I'm going to click that circle that's like half white, half gray, scroll up to curves, and this one's my favorite. I think it's the most like organic and quick way to work. Again, you're going to want to make sure you're on the RGB channel layer instead of one of the specific colors. Otherwise, you're going to be manipulating the curve of the colors, not the overall tonal value. So if I click towards the bottom and add a dot, I'm going to be manipulating with that dot the shadows. As I pull it down, I'm going to darken the shadows. As I bring it up, I'm going to lift the shadows. So what I normally would have done is I wouldn't have used levels. I would have actually used curves to lift the shadows and then have done my adjustment layer or my mask from there. But if I'm trying to increase, I'm going to want to make an S curve. So I'm going to double click, drag my shadows on the bottom corner down, double click towards the top, and drag that slider a little bit up. Okay. Now for this image, an S curve doesn't work. So it doesn't work for all images. I would actually kind of go in reverse to flatten my image a little bit and focus more on the midtones for this photo, just for the style that I'm looking for. So these are 3 different ways that you can adjust for contrast within your photos. And keep in mind that they all come with the mask option. So if it's adjusting something too much, but you like how it looks in another area of the photo, then you can just paint with black in that little layer mask and hide the adjustment from certain parts of your image. I hope this video has been helpful to you. Leave any comments or questions below. Good luck.